Welcome to The Cellar. This first story takes us to Seffner, Florida. Seffner is a suburb located in Hillsborough County, Florida. It's approximately 13 miles or 21 kilometers east of downtown Tampa. Over the last decade, the once rural area has seen rapid growth with numerous housing subdivisions being added to the landscape that contains tall live oak trees, strawberry farms, and lakes. The population has continued to grow, and it's believed that around 8,000 to 9,000 residents currently live there. For this story, we will travel back to the night of February 28, 2013. A 37-year-old man named Jeffrey Bush was fast asleep in his bedroom in a house located within Seffner, Florida. Jeffrey's 36-year-old brother Jeremy was in a room just down the hall from him at the time. Now, according to reports, there were 4 other people in the home at the time, but I was unable to find any information as to who they all were in relation to the 2 brothers. Outside the home, it was a comfortable 60 degrees. The faint hum of crickets and cicadas filled the air within the typically tranquil community. There was simply no warning, no telltale signs at all that something horrifying was just mere seconds away. As Jeffrey lay there fast asleep, he was suddenly jostled awake. It sounded as if a car had just smashed into the home in the middle of the night. I have to imagine that those first few seconds felt like he was in a horrifying nightmare that he would soon awake safely from. But as he became more coherent, Jeffrey began to scream. In the other room of the house, Jeremy heard his brother's calls for help. He immediately got to his feet and began running to his brother's bedroom door, throwing it open and scanning the area to see what was causing his brother's distress. The room was dark, so Jeremy reached for the light switch. As the light came on, Jeremy couldn't believe what he was looking at. His brother's bed, dresser, basically everything that had once sat in Jeffrey Bush's bedroom was now gone. Jeremy was bewildered at what was happening, but then he heard his brother's screams again. This time they were coming from within the massive hole that had opened up and swallowed the entire floor of the bedroom. Jeremy could see part of his brother's bed sticking out of the hole, but it too was slowly vanishing into the ground before him. With little time to think it through, Jeremy jumped into the hole in an effort to rescue his brother. He desperately reached into the dirt and debris trying to find where his brother had been taken. No matter how hard he tried, he simply couldn't find his brother. The rest of the residents in the house would exit safely, calling 911 for help in the process. Before help arrived, Jeremy Bush yelled to his father-in-law to grab him a shovel. Jeremy then sat in that hole, digging at the ground with the shovel all the way up until emergency services finally arrived on scene. They quickly took note of the situation and were able to get Jeremy out of the hole safely. The ground was still unstable and the floor of the home was still breaking and falling apart all around him. He had tried with all his might to get his brother out of that hole, but Jeffrey Bush was never seen again. Rescue officials would safely remove everyone from the area. They then studied the hole in the ground and eventually determined that it was far too dangerous to send anyone in there. So much time had already passed, and they didn't believe there was any chance that Jeffrey Bush could have survived. It was deemed that a body recovery was just far too dangerous, and no one wanted another life to be lost in the process. So what happened to Jeffrey Bush? Well, according to the United States Geological Survey, a sinkhole is a depression in the ground that has no natural external surface drainage. Basically, this means that when it rains, all of the water stays inside the sinkhole and typically drains into the subsurface. Sinkholes are most common in what geologists call karst terrain. These are regions where the types of rocks below the land's surface can naturally be dissolved by groundwater circulating through them. Soluble rocks include salt beds and domes, gypsum, limestone, and other carbonate rock. Florida, for instance, is an area largely underlain by limestone and is highly susceptible to sinkholes. When water from rainfall moves down through the soil, these types of rock begin to dissolve. This creates underground spaces and caverns. Sinkholes are dramatic because the land usually stays intact for a period of time until the underground spaces just get too big. If there is not enough support for the land above the spaces, then a sudden collapse of the land surface can occur. The state of Florida is especially susceptible to sinkholes, and I found this video that was done by News Channel 10 that really dives into the reasons why Florida is so susceptible to the terrifying problem.
That happens. Let's talk about sinkholes. So rain falls down. Here in Florida, the top layer is mostly sand. Then you've got a layer of clay, and then underneath of that, you have this limestone. And this is real porous. Lots of holes, the aquifers down there, that's where all the water is. So a lot of times what happens is we tend to see a lot of these in the wintertime when it's dry, and that water, it dries up. And so this is actually holding pressure. When that water goes away, it can collapse from the weight on top of it. That's why we see it a lot in the wintertime. But in the summertime too, we get the rain to fall. That kind of acidic mixture starts to eat away at some of the limestone, and that can create the holes and the bigger holes. And what happens is once that hole gets big enough, it can't support the weight. It opens up to the surface, and that'll pull things down. In this case, it's a big one. Now, and also
he was laying down in bed. We just got home from work. I have a second job. I went to work, came home at 10 o'clock. We left and came back, and I knocked on his door and told him that we wasn't working today. So he said okay and everything, and I went in my room. I heard a loud crash like a car coming through the house, and I heard my brother screaming. So I ran back there and tried going inside his room, but all I seen was this big hole, real big hole, and all I seen was his mattress, and basically that was it. That's all I seen.
You tried jumping in after him?
Yes, I jumped in the hole and was trying to dig him out. I couldn't find him. I thought I could hear him hollering for me to help him. And I told my father-in-law to grab a shovel so I could start digging, and I just started digging and started digging and started digging, and then the cops showed up and pulled me out of the hole and told me the floor was still falling in.
You guys are out. Why are you guys out here in support?
Just to get closure, I guess. Make sure he's not dead. See if he's alive. But I know in my heart he's dead. But I just want to be here for him because I love him. It was my brother, man.
As always, I want to take this time to send my deepest condolences to Jeffrey Bush's family, friends, and especially to his brother Jeremy. I can't imagine what it was like going through what he did. Daniel Hill was a 54-year-old man from South Lyon, Michigan. South Lyon is a city located in Oakland County, Michigan. Its overall population is around 11,000 to 12,000 residents. The city itself takes up a total area of 3.74 square miles, providing those that live there with a small town living while also having the convenience of nearby interstate highways, major metropolitan areas, and international airports. Daniel had spent the last 2 years of his life working at Michigan Seamless Tube. The company's 344,000 square foot facility is located within South Lyon, Michigan, about an hour northwest of the city of Detroit. According to the company's website, they manufacture boiler tube, mechanical tube, and carbon and alloy pressure pipes. It was Saturday, February 9, 2013. Daniel Hill, or as his coworkers called him, Moose, was in the process of receiving training within the facility. Now, it's unclear exactly how everything transpired, but from what has been reported, Daniel was working adjacent to a large vat of sulfuric acid. At some point, Daniel approached the vat in an effort to test the acid solution, which should be at roughly a 10 to 12% concentration. It's not clear how or why, but while Daniel was testing the acid, he would fall into the large vat. This particular vat of acid was 8 feet deep, 10 feet wide, and 30 feet long. The sulfuric acid inside was kept at a temperature of 160 degrees Fahrenheit or 71 degrees Celsius. Sulfuric acid in concentrations between 10% and 90% is known to be especially corrosive, and this acid was at around 12%. According to my research, the company used the sulfuric acid solution to strengthen pipes they manufactured. At around 12:15 that afternoon, fellow co-workers of Daniel would find him hanging onto the edge of the vat. It was unclear how long he had been in there, but they soon rushed to his aid, doing all they could to pull him out of the vat, suffering numerous burns in the process. They would immediately bring Daniel to one of the safety showers as someone called for emergency services. At 12:21 p.m., police and rescue would arrive to the scene. At the time help arrived, Daniel was still walking on his own 2 feet. According to reports, he was able to speak with the police and paramedics as they quickly loaded him onto an ambulance and transported him to the University of Michigan Hospital, which is located in Ann Arbor. The trip to the hospital was about 15 miles in length and would have taken about 27 minutes for a normal commuter. All I know is that the trip had to have been agonizing for Daniel. When concentrated sulfuric acid contacts the skin, the resulting chemical reaction releases heat that brings sustained thermal damage to the skin. The sustained heat dehydrates local tissues and cells, and the consequential skin coagulation and necrosis may produce eschars and damage the microvascular system. According to the U.S. Centers for Disease Control, sulfuric acid is used in many industries and is highly corrosive. Chemical exposure through inhalation, ingestion, or direct contact can destroy the skin, eyes, teeth, and lungs. Severe exposure, like what Daniel encountered, can result in death. At the hospital, doctors and medical staff tended to Daniel, doing all they could to try and ease his pain and make him comfortable. At around 11:30 p.m. that night, approximately 11 hours since Daniel had fallen into the acid, he would ultimately succumb to his injuries. A fire official was later quoted as saying, "He lived in some of the worst pain imaginable." Following Daniel's tragic death, his family would speak to the news and thank the co-workers that heroically pulled him from the vat. At the same time, the Michigan Occupational Safety and Health Administration would begin their investigation into the tragic events. Months later, they would finally release their findings. The inspections ultimately resulted in 5 serious citations, according to the state agency, and more investigations since have been opened into the facility. The company was ultimately fined a measly $32,500 as a result of Daniel's horrible accident. What's even more alarming in this case is what was reported by the Detroit News. Michigan Seamless Tube, one of South Lyon's largest employers, has had 7 workplace safety violations since 2012 according to the U.S. Occupational Safety and Health Administration, with fines totaling $93,000. The state of Michigan fined the company $17,500 for a repeated violation a year ago of not guarding or protecting 6 employees from pinch points, places where people or body parts could be caught in a machine or between equipment. Regulators also found Michigan Seamless Tube had 4 serious violations in 2012. That included 4 instances of unguarded pinch points exposed to 18 employees that resulted in a $35,000 settlement. Another serious violation related to the company's control of hazardous energy resulted in a $35,000 fine. Ultimately, companies like this far too often put profits above the safety of their employees. The biggest problem is that far too often the punishment these companies face is never enough to truly make a difference. So these companies continue on, and sadly, employees like Daniel end up one day paying the ultimate price. As always, my deepest condolences go out to Daniel Hill's family and friends. It was October 20th, 2017. Natalia Nemetz was a 36-year-old woman that lived in Belgorod Oblast. Belgorod Oblast is a federal subject of Russia. Its administrative center is the city of Belgorod. As of 2021, the population is listed at around 1.5 million residents. To provide some further context, the federal subjects of Russia, also referred to as the subjects of the Russian Federation, are the constituent entities of Russia, its top-level political divisions. According to the Constitution of Russia, the Federation consists of republics, krais, oblasts, cities of federal importance, an autonomous oblast, and autonomous okrugs, all of which are equal subjects of the Federation. To try and put it as simply as I can, the subjects of the Russian Federation are the main administrative divisions within Russia. Since March 18, 2014, Russia is made up of 85 federal subjects, and they are grouped into 8 federal districts. Natalia worked hard to provide for her son. She was currently employed at the Slavyanka Confectionery Factory. The Slavyanka Confectionery Factory is located in Stary Oskol in the Belgorod region of Russia. Stary Oskol is a city that is located 618 kilometers or 384 miles south of Moscow along the Oskol River. It has a population of around 221,000 residents. The confectionery factory provides numerous jobs to the overall residents of Stary Oskol. It is well known for making a wide variety of sweets and confectionery products. The factory has numerous large industrial mixers and tanks located within the facility. It was a normal workday for Natalia. As she clocked in and got to work, she was eventually given the assignment of cleaning a large mixer that is used for caramel production. As Natalia approached the mixer, she would begin cleaning it like she had done numerous times prior. Now, it's unclear exactly how everything unfolded, but at some point, something horrible happened. Natalia would end up falling into the tank. It's not clear how she fell in, but shortly after she did, the machine started pumping molten hot caramel into the tank. Sometime later, Natalia's coworkers realized she was missing. They began to look for her, and what they found horrified them. Within the caramel mixer, they found only the legs of Natalia sticking out. It was clear right away that there was nothing anyone could do for the woman. She had boiled alive in the sticky hot sweet liquid. Not a soul in the factory had heard her make any noise. To make the situation even more horrifying, the tank that Natalia was in was fitted with blades that were used to continuously mix the caramel around. Eventually, the tank was drained of the caramel, and Natalia's body was removed. According to reports, the factory management tried to cover up the horrifying accident, with numerous employees at the factory having their jobs threatened if they were to speak out about what had occurred. Eventually, though, a local newspaper did pick up the story, and an investigation was eventually launched into the incident. According to reports, investigators are currently considering two possibilities as to what transpired. Either Natalia fainted and fell as a result of the room's high air temperature, or she simply stumbled into the tank accidentally. What's further alarming is that there were reports that this was the third death within the factory in 2017. I could not find any details about the two other deaths, but this highlights a real need for the factory to make changes to their safety regulations. There appears to be serious negligence going on, and the company attempting to cover things up doesn't help its overall case. At the end of the day, a young child lost his mother in a horrifying manner. I found it reported that Natalia's sister would end up taking her son Ivan and now appears to be caring for him. As I've stated numerous times in other stories I have covered, companies far too often put profits above the safety of their employees. Those getting rich at the top are never the ones that have to pay the ultimate price. My deepest condolences go out to Natalia's son Ivan, as well as all her family and friends. Thank you for tuning in to another episode. If you enjoy the content, please hit that like and subscribe button. It helps the channel continue to grow. Also, if you want to make sure you don't ever miss a new upload, you can turn on the bell notifications after you subscribe. In the description box below, you'll find a link to my merch store and a link to the Cellar Dwellers membership tier for the channel. If you're interested, please take a moment to go check those things out. If you'd like to submit your own scary story or a story recommendation, you can do so using the email that is linked in the description box below. As always, I do all the research, writing, recording, and editing for the channel myself, so anything that you do to support this channel is greatly appreciated. Until next time, I'll see you all again as we head back into the cellar.